So hi everybody, welcome back to one of my kit review. This time is the very famous Scania 3 axles. Kit number 792 is the top line 143R Scania. As you probably have found already on my channel, there was already on a previous video the review I made about the T142H version of this Scania. Basically they are a very similar mold. Italeri studied them in the early 80s, in the middle 80s I guess, and they are still currently some of the status of the art of what you can get around these type of models. You know, Scania is an exceptional Swedish producer, but today it's a Swedish company owned by Volkswagen, but it's all belonging to the Volkswagen Group. But back in time, they were a Swedish company from Skåne, a region of the southern part of Sweden, you know, quite big area. And actually the facility where they produced this stuff was Trollhättan, is a city a little higher up than Skåne in Sweden. You know, the model made by Italeri is a reissue. This box is a reissue. I think they kept anyway the correct number of the previous catalog. You know, so the box art is completely different from the previous of the Wrecker Scania Bro Wrecker kit, and we have this typical design of the late 90s. I think the rebox is from there it is 2003, so it's already, I think, the second or the third edition of this truck that they made it back in time. I think, as I said, around the middle 80s, you know. Also because the truck itself belonged of that period, so it was a new truck in the 80s, you know. Italeri made an exceptional model again, and there was a few improvement comparing to the original first box, and also comparing to the box that I already showed you about the long nose T version, you know. First of all, the decal sheet. Here is a fresh and absolutely quality one coming from Zanchetti, a producer that in my opinion is even better than Cartograph, with some road plates. I don't know how much reliable are those road plates, you know, because sometimes they are quite fantasy one, but anyway the quality is absolutely good. It's mostly interesting because you can keep the original livery made in silver used in the Scania of that period, and the typical King of the Road logo that they had on the top over the spoiler, you know. The biggest modification they did was about, as I said, this decal sheet, but mostly it was the first series from Italeri that started to feature the rubber tiles. You know, Italeri was usually making this type of models back in the day when they had a kind of black sprue with the wheels that were printed in two different halves, and they was featuring the Michelin X. Was, in my opinion, slightly different in the dimension, because anyway they mark it here like a 12.0020, even if it is, in my opinion, a little bit too small, you know, compared to the usually R22 that was the rims that I made with the Michelin X, for example. But it's anyway very good quality, because these tires, you know, with a little reworking, they are a really good quality one. They tend not to use with the time to fade off and to become softer like the original Italeri rubber parts. It also probably the quality of the plastic they used has improved during the years, even if it is already a model that is over 20 years old, you know. the sprue that you will find inside, there is a brief story as usual. It was funny because back in time I remember that there was a company in Germany, in Austria, sorry, making the box and the instruction sheet for Italeri. So when you try to read the Italian translation that they made probably from English or from Germany in Italian language, it was extremely funny, you know. I didn't read it here, but sometimes they had quite funny grammatical mistakes in the translation. And this is still an old-fashioned instruction sheet, you know, where they show the insert, they show all the modification that you have to do to make a proper version, and enlarged and longer rear chassis for this truck. Already back in time they modified this sprue, you know. That was the original one that you can find inside the T132. And as I said in the video showing the Heller Scania 141, is always better if you find one of these trucks like a donor kit, despite they can be time by time a little bit a rare item to find, but they are nearly always constantly available, you know, in the market. So the same is here. You see there is several options that you don't have to use, and it's you have to study time by time the different possibilities to build it up. For example, this was the first edition spoiler that they had on the top of the roof that have been changed. That became that type of completely closed side of the spoilers that the Scania of the 80s used to have, you know. So it's a different one. It is not mistaken, in my opinion. Of course, this is nicer because it's more 70s, it's more a look coming from the past, so I like it much more, this older version. I think if you find the proper documentation of that, surely there is also something like that. Of course, my way to finish this type of model, if I ever will build it up, will be like a completely well used and rusty vehicle. These were made completely in iron, in steel. It was a real Swedish machine, and they were used to work like workers during the big and serious Swedish winter. So I would like to go in that direction. It's very interesting because, as you can see, the configuration, they don't say so much about the configuration here in the instructions, but you know, if you go into the decal, into the instruction sheet, you see that is a 6x2 version of the truck. You know, it's a 6x2 with the double rear axle. You know, 6x2 means that the last double wheel axle is not a traction axle, so it is just something that is used to distribute a little better the weight over the fifth wheel. That in this model is printed in an exceptional nice way. Is amazing, like details. You know, this is a quality that you will find in Italeri Kit only starting from the new mold of the Mercedes Actros arrived, I think around 2015, 2016, something like that, or in the Volvo FH4. Indeed, they returned to use this wonderful anyway mold, but mistaken for the series, for the last Scania R series that they produced around 2020-2022, to have an idea. So Italeri just made a kind of mismatch because they placed the new mold of the new cab used by Scania featuring the older chassis of this Scania 142 and 143. It's something that a lot of models, of course, didn't appreciate because, of course, also the modern version of the modern Scania have a totally different chassis, a totally different mechanic. They work mostly on the fact that the part that you will see in modern trucks being completely closed in the side and in the back and over the walking area over the fifth wheel is completely closed, so you don't see so much of the undercarriage. But you know, we are modelers, we have the proper detail, so that was a little fault in the new mold of just the Scania, for example, because and I don't know today because at the moment I'm making this video still the Iveco S-Way Stralis is not on the market, so I suspect that they will do the same. But indeed, at least we have a chassis that is not the correct one for the S-Way, but it is coming from the Stralis that is quite similar to that. In this specific model, you know, about the Scania, as well as they did for the Volvo mold until the FH3. The FH4 made by Italeri is completely a brand new mold. Instead, the FH3 had the new cab of the FH3, quite modern, and the lower chassis that was still featuring the part from the Volvo F12. So it's completely not matching at all with the real object, and that was a big lack. You know, Italeri constantly made that type of mistake when they produced trucks around the 90s and the early year 2000, you know. So the model itself is absolutely beautiful. It's already a very good quality of plastic. Here we have also a quite cleaner version of the rear hubs. You know, they were quite always critical, you know, because the detail probably for the type of the mold they had was never so satisfying. You know, there's always a kind of lacking part, especially the main hub of the real big wheels. It's not so well detailed. You know, if you look at the picture of the real object, the real hub is much more detailed, and this was the maximum they could do at the time. The first edition of the boxes like that T142 and even worse one, so I think this is a good compromise to try to make it something nicer. But indeed, if you go for a detail in a resin, at least for the hub, the model will become incredibly nicer than what it is now. This is basically the new mold that we seen before in the instructions, so featuring the brand new spoiler, the brand new parts dedicated to this version. You know, is a little bit wrinkled, a little bit fold already, you know, and so you have to be extremely careful managing this part, even if as I say that the plastic is absolutely good. You see there is thanks God we have a bag, there is parts floating around in the bags. This is typical from the molds of this era. This is the part that I mentioned in the video of the Scania L Scania 141. As you can see, there is an incredibly big amount of details that you will not find in the LR box, so my tip is always to use this sprue to make a much better detail over the older Scania provided by Volvo that was a different and previous version compared to this 143. The same for the last part of the cab. You see the detail is extremely fine, extremely well done. Always remember, guys, this is a mold coming from the 80s, so the quality that you can have in the tiers, it was quite different from the stuff that you can have today. Many modelers say, it's just a Tamiya of the year 2000. Tamiya was another level again, you know, but this stuff, it was absolutely unique, and the steel today is proposed in Italeri catalog, you know, because time by time they make a reissue, they take some basically special edition, special libraries of these trucks, so you will constantly find it back and back and back again in the catalog of Italy. I think also right now, recently, if you search for Scania, I think even just Google for Scania 143, you will find the last box. I think is the one white and red over a very nice box art, you know, with the mountains in the background, but it's basically the same identical kit that you are getting here. So my tip is anyway to get it, because this is a fantastic model. So if you are a lover of a big rig from Sweden, this is absolutely a must that you should have in your collection. And when it is completed and well done, especially with a good modeler making a little weathering stuff and proper painting of everything, every time you will have something absolutely exciting and something absolutely well done, really featuring the mighty Scania of the 80s. That's it. As you probably understand, I love these big guys, and I love to try to find a good model and a good idea, maybe also for the trailer for this big guy. Thanks for watching, guys, and see you in the next.